Good day, everyone. Today we will be having GNED 05 Purposive Communication. And once again, I am Miss Baes-Austria, your subject teacher. So for the lesson 2 of GNED 05, we'll be having communication principles and ethics. So likewise in our daily lives, no, we do have our own principles that we do follow up until right now, and of course the ethics. And for communication, there are some principles and ethics that inculcate with communication. So communication will progress because of the principles and ethics. So let's start with the communication principle. So first principle of communication is that communication is inescapable. Every time in our daily lives, no, we can't escape communication. Right then and then, when we open our eyes, once we wake up, we need to communicate. And there are some other studies that even though when we are sleeping, no, we do communicate. Sometimes in our dreams, and sometimes we do sleep talking, and there is still communication even when you are asleep. Next principle is that communication is irreversible. When we say irreversible, hindi mo na mababawi kung ano yung sinabi mo. Some students said na, paano po pag na-unsent yung message sa messenger? So, well then, that is mediated. There is technology involved. And then, when we say irreversible, parang face-to-face, so when the listener received your message already, wala nang bawian. So, siya na lang mismo or the receiver will interpret the message he or she received, and then ikaw, bilang speaker, hindi mo na siya mababawi. So, in communication, you can't never, parang gusto mo ibalik yung pagkain, di ba? So, parang sa pagkain, gusto mo siyang ibalik na lang or what, or minsan ilululun mo na lang yung sasabihin mo kasi mali yung term or nakakahiya yung sinabi mo. And you want to change or yun yung time na parang gusto mo na lang lumubog sa lupa. Pero, well, in communication kasi, hindi mo na siya mababawi, no? In some other cases, wherein there are other aspects involved, but in the reality of communication, we can't never reverse communication. For the third principle, we do have communication is complicated. Yan. When we say complicated, there are different aspects that involves communication, like in our different contexts, yung communicative situation natin, di ba? Simpleng nakikipag-usap ka inside the classroom, it can be complicated. Why? Kapag maingay yung classmates mo, di ba? Simpleng pakikipag-chat, it can be complicated depending on the topic that you're talking about. But what if pumasok na rin yung mga barriers like internet connection problem and so on and so forth. So, in our presentation, no, parang babae yung communication, pero meron din namang complicated na lalaki kausap, di ba? So, more often, kasi later on, you will be know the context of communication or principles of communication that is context that includes different aspects, okay, that contributes to the communication as being complicated one, okay? And for that one, let's have the number 4, communication is contextual. Since I've talked about that communication is complicated, there are 5 aspects that put into the context of communication. That's why it contributes to being complicated, no? For the communication to be complicated. And some of it, or the context of communication, are of course your emotions, your feelings. Next is the environment that you belong to. And then lastly is the cultural aspects or the race that you are into. Diba? And there are 5, so let's dig into it. First is the psychological context, like what I've said, your emotions, your feelings do affect the communication. For example, you are listening right now and then you are hungry. 'Di ba? Sometimes mawawala yung focus natin into listening kasi nga gutom tayo or whatsoever. And then sometimes what if buryong ka or bad trip ka? How can you have a good communication process if that's what you feel? Okay, so it contributes a big part in communication. Next is the relational context. When we say relational context, your relationship towards your to the participants of communication. Like for example, you are the speaker and then you are talking to somebody. There will come a time that your communication will be intimate and of course formal. There will be casual or informal and then the formal one. Okay, for example, you are talking to your friends, diba? It is very different when you are talking to your teachers, when you are talking to the principal. It is very different when you are talking to your parents than talking to somebody else or strangers. Okay, so there is the aspect of relational context in every situation or in every communication situation that we are having in our daily lives. For the situational context class, you're going to use your psychosocial. Okay? So in situational context, you will be combining your psychological context, relational context, to be into that situation of communication. For example, our situational context of communication inside the classroom will be formal since I am your teacher and you are my students. What if the situation is you saw me outside the university having a sip of coffee and then you're going to greet me? Of course, we can be casual that time, okay? But if the situation will be inside the classroom, everyone or you and me will be formal as it is as your teacher and as you as my students. Okay, so there are different situational contexts in communication. So, ibabagay natin the way we converse, the way we communicate to that situational context since we are using our psychosocial. Okay, next is the environmental. So, environmental context plays a big part in how you communicate in your daily life. So the way you communicate is based on how you had it in your environment. For example, nandun ka sa environment na laging pasigaw yung mga tao. Of course, ma-adapt mo yon, di ba? For example, nasa environment ka na malumanay, magsalita yung mga tao, you will also adapt that. What if you are in the environment of palamura yung mga kasama mo and then laging galit, so you will be also adopting that. And then unconsciously, you will bring that to you kasi yun yung meron ka sa environment mo, yun yung na-adapt mo, and then yun yung na-absorb mo into communication. And for environmental context, hindi lang siya sa communication lagi, no? Meron din dun sa child development and so on and so forth. Okay? And then last one is the cultural context. In our case, no, in the Philippines, we are all Filipinos, right? And then, what if you are raised into different countries? Of course, maybe you will not be that happy individual kasi kahit dito in the Philippines, di ba, kahit may mga sakuna, I mean, hindi naman sa hindi ka masayang tao, no? Pero in the Philippines kasi, na na-adapt natin, no? Like yung mga critic sa atin ng foreigners, no? Kahit may sakuna na, kahit nabagyo na, kahit bahaan na, kahit nandun na tayo sa critical na stage ng life natin as Filipinos, no? We can still manage to smile. But in some other countries kasi, di ba, yung sa Germany, lagi silang nakasimangot, though they are already happy. Yung kumbaga parang serious or formal yung faces nila. But in the Philippines, we are very approachable, we are very hospitable, and that's the culture that we are adopting. Mahirap lang maging hospitable ngayon or maging approachable ngayon since pandemic. But then, sa part ng culture and tradition of the Filipinos, nadadala natin yon through communication. So, yung mga stories from our OFWs, di ba? They have friends from different countries or foreign countries, and they can have interaction with them because they can communicate properly, or they approach them, or some approach them accordingly as they become friends, no? So that's part of cultural context. And then, for the latter part of our lesson, we have the communication ethics. So likewise, in our daily lives, no, we follow what do we think that is good, no? Because if you do have the ethics, you will follow what is good because you identify the good out of the bad things, diba? So you will be balancing the fact of having good and bad. So if you do have ethics, you have the moral. Okay, the way you think, the way you act, there is always the moral. Okay? And for the communication ethics, we do have 10, so let's have it one by one. First one is seek to elicit the best in communications and interactions with other group members. So in communication, you need to draw out. So elicit, di ba? Palabasin mo yung best mo in communication and interaction. That's one ethics in communication. Since dapat i-embrace natin, di ba, yung Latin term of communication, which is communicare. So to share care, ilabas natin yung best natin doon to give positivity to other people. Pero kapag hindi, kasi if we didn't give our best, for example, sa classroom interaction, hindi kayo magpa-participate, hindi kayo magbibigay ng side nyo, di ba? The communication will not be at its best. Okay? So, dapat may feedback kayo yung mga activities na nagpapasa or ginagawa din within the deadline. Okay? And second one is that listen when others speak. Sometimes we forgot to listen with in-depth understanding or comprehension. Parang naririnig lang natin yung sinasabi ng speaker, pero absent-minded tayo. So, make sure na we can interpret or we can decode yung message na nare-receive natin, because the communication will fail if you as receiver will not interpret or decode the message you received or yung na-listen mo or narinig mo na message. Next is that speak non-judgmentally. Okay, in our society, one culture na meron tayo, no, parang isang tingin pa lang natin sa tao, parang nanguhusga na. Pero in communication, please, again, share good vibes, share care, no, na dapat ay hindi tayo nang judge. Nakita lang natin, medyo madumi yung itsura niya, i-judge na natin siya, eh nagtatanong lang naman siya ng direction, di ba? What if isa siyang masipag na tao na talagang madudumihan siya dun sa work niya, and then kailangan niya ng help or assistance, tapos i-judge na natin sila agad. So let's not be like that, no? In any different aspects or in any different communication situation, we must not be judgmental. Okay? Let's have number 4. Speak from your own experience and perspective, expressing your own thoughts, needs, and feelings. Guys, in speaking or in communication, once you utter something, make sure it is based on yourself, not based on others, because it will have misconversation or miscommunication or misunderstanding if you will always stand for the others, okay? Don't forget to stand on your own. Kaya nga, di ba yung sa mga pageants, winning answers na ng mga contestants if they speak something regarding to them, to their experiences. Kasi that is a good communication ethics, di ba? So maganda na yung views natin is based on our own experiences, based on our own learning, not with other people's opinion or ideas. Okay? And then for number 5, seek to understand others rather than to be right or more ethical than you. Okay, when you communicate, class, make sure na nagkakaroon ng unawaan from the speaker and the listener. Because what if one of the communicators or participants sa communicator or sa communication rather, is mataas yung tingin niya sa sarili niya than dun sa kausap niya, then there will be also a problem with that. Kasi nga, parang hindi ka na open for communication or for other suggestion through that communication because you seek or you see yourself higher than others. You think that you are better than others, 'di ba? So hindi naman dapat ganon, lalong-lalo na sa communication because we need to have a good understanding from the speaker and the listener so that you can have the good process of communication. For number 6, avoid speaking for others. For example, by characterizing what others have said without checking your understanding or by universalizing your opinions, beliefs, values, and conclusions, assuming everyone is the same as you. Class, dun sa number 5, di ba, you think na mas mataas ka. For example, somebody think na mas mataas siya dun sa kausap niya. Dito naman, hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na your opinion will be the same as the opinions of others. Class, in communication, we need to have open ear, diba? Or open mind para sa ibang suggestions. Kasi hindi po pwedeng sabihin na, ito yung pananaw ko, so dapat ito na rin yung pananaw mo. So, hindi ganon. So, in communication, you need to listen and speak, diba? Parang, open ka for suggestions and then ikaw open to give suggestions. So, ganun yung nangyayari. Hindi yung ipupush mo na ito yung pinaniniwalaan mo, ito na rin dapat yung pinaniniwalaan ng lahat. So, hindi siya good ethics sa communication kapag ganun yung communicators. Okay? For number 7, manage your own personal boundaries. Share only what you are comfortable sharing. Class, this time, most importantly, no, yung time natin ngayon, puro social media na, puro online na. When we do have something na sa tingin nyo personal na, no, wag na i-post sa Facebook, okay? Wag nang nagkagalit lang saglit ng jowa, post na sa Facebook. Paano kung gamitin yun sa inyo ng mga kaaway nyo, for example, diba? So, mag-set tayo ng limit dun sa mga sinashare natin or dun sa mga sinasabi natin through face-to-face, diba? Kasi minsan it can be used against us, okay? So, you need to have your own privacy. And align with number 7, respect the personal boundaries of others. If you have your own privacy, respect others' privacy too. Kasi they are also limiting the things they want to share. So, kapag nakikipag-communicate ka, wag mo i-push na i-open lahat sa'yo yung problema niya or do not expect na everything in details ay masasabi sa'yo, okay? So, si communicators dapat alam yung boundaries nila upon sharing their own info. For number 9, avoid interrupting and side conversation. Class, we all know this, no? Wag tayo yung maging cause of hindrance sa communication and also wag tayo maging bias. So, kapag may kausap tayo, make sure na tinitignan natin yung both sides. Hindi tayo kumakampi lang sa isa or hindi tayo nagsastand lang sa isa. So, we need to look for the different views in communication because that's a good ethics in communication. And lastly, make sure that everyone has time to speak, that all members have relatively equal airtime if they want. So, for example, in our case, no, during synchronous classes, I'm really sorry if I'm not able to call every one of you na gustong sumagot. For example, nagtanong ako, madaming nag-raise ng hand, then I just selected some students, no, because we are under time pressure. But in the reality of communication, for example, you are out to your different careers, you're out to your different professions, diba? Hopefully, na in a meeting, for example, ay yung airtime nyo with your boss, with you, for example, as business owner, dapat equally yung airtime dun sa paghingi nyo ng suggestion with each and every member of the communication. Kasi nga po, with that, no, makikita natin or mapapalawak natin yung information natin if we know how to listen with different opinions or suggestions coming from different individual, not just with yours. Okay? So, ganun yung nangyayari in communication ethics. Kasi if you look into it na ikaw yung magaling, ikaw lang yung speaker na magaling, then communication will fail or there will be no ethics in communication. Kasi nga po ay hindi basta pantay lang, but then getting the information from each and everyone or gathering information from each and everyone, because that is communication, since there are different participants or communicators inside communication. Never ever forget that. So I think that's all for lesson 2. Still, guys, stay safe and God bless. Thank you very much for listening. And then wait for some updates for the activity. Thank you very much, guys. God bless.